Speaking of your favourite way to be robbed, perhaps your least favourite way to be robbed, council rates is probably one of them. It certainly is for me. I mean, you know, we bang on every night about these council stories here because you might say, look, they're minor stories, but these are the things. And I have a background in working in newspapers at a local level. That's where I started out, at the local rag in Adelaide, working around the suburbs. You will never find a story that gets people more angry and they're more interested in than a council story, because it affects them every single day. And you pay your rates and you expect something reasonable to be done with it. And we constantly show you the examples of how they're not doing reasonable things with it. But I can't believe this. A decision has been handed down by the South Australian Remuneration Tribunal, and you would know this is the mob that sets the pay for senior public servants and politicians. So they decide what the Premier gets and what MPs get, and they also decide what council CEOs can be paid. So they've gone through and done an audit, because a number of councils have come to the Remuneration Tribunal and said, for some reason or another, we want to pay our CEO more. So the Remuneration Tribunal has reviewed all of the pay bands for CEOs, and they do it council by council. And for at least half a dozen councils, they've actually reduced the top end of the pay packet that the council CEO can go away. And one of these councils is Burnside, as they say in Adelaide. Burnside, it's the the leafy eastern suburbs, which is actually now turned into Labor territory. But they wanted to give their CEO a pay rise, and at the moment, the upper end of that is $351K that they're allowed to give. Now the Remuneration Tribunal says you can only give $321K. So in going begging for a pay rise, they've actually come back and said, no, you've got to take a pay cut. How good is this?
What's that whole thing? Be careful what you ask for. And the reason that the Burnside Council wanted to pay their CEO so much money was that they listed three things: because he's the CEO in a highly engaged and affluent population.
She, I should note, it's a she.
I'm not sure what that matters. They wanted to pay her because she comes under media scrutiny. Well, a lot of roles come under media scrutiny, and because of political challenges. It's not that difficult, Freya. Last I remember, it was like filling in potholes, arranging for bins to be emptied, mowing the grass, in the public park areas. For a CEO to earn as much as, or in some cases, more than the state premier, it's just outrageous. You've got 68 local council CEOs in South Australia in a population of 2 million people, and these CEOs are on between $200,000 and $450,000 each. No wonder they don't want to. I know you're a bit of a proponent for amalgamating councils.
Absolutely.
No wonder they don't want to amalgamate. Why would you when you're on that kind of money?
Well, I think it shows us a couple things. Firstly, defenders of the high remuneration would argue that a lot of these councils have budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. So it actually shows us that these councils have expanded well beyond the remit of what councils were actually established to do. And a lot of the functions in the community that used to be carried out by not-for-profits, voluntary associations, churches, are now being taken over by the councils. So you end up with these huge, massive, bloated bureaucracies performing functions that used to be perfectly well performed by not-for-profits. But then it also does highlight the fact that our politicians in Australia really are not paid very much. In New South Wales, you have 10 council CEOs earning over $500,000. That is far more than the Premier of the state. So it is pretty shocking. I mean, I think we need to pay our politicians more and also just rein in councils.